You. So, if you have checked out the price 2 episodes, I went full blown Telemundo on you guys. I went full Spanish on one and then full English on the other. Crazy enough is the Spanish one was longer than the English one. I was surprised, but today we're gonna continue this trend that we've been. Yeah, it's a trend, and anybody who comes on is a we. So we on this trend, and you're on this voyage as well, where it's about personal life and your personal experiences and stuff, and just sharing along of what happens in life. So welcome to homie. You already know the homie. If you don't, I always let everybody introduce themselves. So go for it.
What's up, King Mexico? What's up, King Mexico fans? Everybody who's on this podcast. Name's Flo. Been on here a couple times now, and we had this conversation offline. Looking forward to what we bring up regarding the topic that we're going to discuss.
Yeah. So just going along from that. So he was having he had a podcast when him and his wife were discussing about, you want to fill it in, bro? It's been a while. I know you could fill it in
Yeah.
beautifully.
So essentially, the title of the episode is called "Beauty Standards," um, regards to women and what men typically find attractive, right? And in a nutshell, she was saying that today's fad is like women like getting lip injections and like, you know, uh basically plastic surgery, which I don't necessarily find attractive, but she said that that's the look that, people put out, mainly celebrities, right? But I was letting her know that I would say most men, generally speaking, prefer natural, right? But for whatever reason, women think that these types of features are, you know, what men prefer. Now, don't get me wrong, they don't look bad, but if there's a preference, it's always natural for me.
I completely agree with that. And just to go off of that right there, we're gonna start from there. So personally, viewing wise, is amazing. You know what I mean? There's nothing like looking at fat ass and big ass titties that are fake and shit, big ass lips and shit. There's nothing wrong with that. Like that's just very attractive. Some guys actually like that type of format and they go into a full blown relationship and marry and have kids and shit. Me personally, I could do with it, right? I'm not knocking it. I would date. However, I don't see myself going on a full blown relationship with something like that. Because with something like that, it attracts a lot of eyes. Believe it or not, that shit's gonna get you a lot of attention. And you gotta be, you gotta have thick fucking I mean, you gotta just have a thick bone and shit for this shit. Cause guys are gonna try to flirt with your girl in front of you, be mad disrespectful and shit. Probably be like, "Ooh, look at them fat ass, look at that big ass titties and shit," and you right there, and you're gonna get upset,
Damn. Damn. Wow.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I personally have never experienced that, at least not in front of me, right? But I could definitely see that happening to women um who will have all these, even if they don't say it, right? Um, like I don't know about you, but when you out in public with your lady, right? Right. And you can either speak on this if you don't want to, this is very personal. I get it, right? Like I can see like when dudes try to catch a glance at my girl, like I'll catch it, right? But it's never at the point where it's disrespectful, where they're fucking saying something that's like out of pocket, or like staring where it's the point like I'm not even there. No, it's like a little glance, and that comes with the territory, I think, of having a beautiful woman. If you're gonna, I mean, if you're gonna have a beautiful woman, people are gonna look. That's just like you said, people are gonna. So yes, that tough skin, you definitely have to develop it. I definitely did struggle with that in the beginning when I first got with my wife because like it would happen all the time. Like you would see like the looks, right? But never had anybody come up to her in front of me or even to me, whatever, and say something out of pocket, right? But now that I'm older, gonna be 39 tomorrow, actually. Yes, tomorrow's my birthday. Um, I've gotten to the point where it's like it's flattering because it shows you that you have a beautiful woman. You want to have. Let's be honest. Every man wants to have a beautiful woman. If you're not, then you're just lying to yourself, right? So to some extent, there's that there's that line of like you don't cross, you don't disrespect the man or the woman, right? But you can acknowledge somebody's beautiful, right? And like you said, you look at these women, right? And you're like, okay, I see that. That doesn't mean that you're hooking up with them or that you are, doing things that are not respectful to your relationship or to the woman, right? But there's ways about it, right? There's definitely ways about it. And I think if people can recognize that, then you can have a more transparent relationship, right? Like I'll be honest with you, like my wife will sometimes will ask me, "Hey, like, what do you think of this girl?" And I'll let her know, like, "Hey, I think this girl's," or she'll ask me, "Do you think this girl's pretty?" I'm like, "Yeah." And we'll leave it at that. Like we're not gonna get into like a full on fight about it. Now, you asked me this 10, 11 years ago, then it wouldn't be the same conversation. Like we are at the point in our relationship, in our lives, and at an age where you acknowledge something and then you move on from it.
Correct. There's nothing wrong with looking, and that is 100% correct what you just said right there. When you're able to look at something else, and you can even point it out to your wife, you'd be like, "Yo, you see that? It's hot, right? Look at that fat ass." There's nothing wrong. Once you get to that comfort level, it should be like natural because you know what you got. She knows what you got. I mean, she knows what she has, and there should be no argument right there. But however, I know people who get mad if you glance at something that's on TV. It's like, are you serious? Like, you're really getting mad over some shit on TV? Like, it's not gonna happen. It's never gonna happen. Why are you getting so jealous? Like, it's literally somebody famous on TV. Like, I think there has to be that talk.
Respect.
Like, yeah, the respect. But I'm like, if you're seeing something, even on social media. Like, what's the possibility of average Joe hooking up with like these IG models and shit? Like, honestly. And
Yeah.
some of the guys that be looking at these chicks, the guy's like a two, bro. Honestly,
He has
two.
no shot.
He has no shot.
Most dudes don't have a shot with these people. Even if you did, right? These girls are flooded with DMs. So you're gonna be the last in line. I mean, unless you say something that's like crazy and then somehow you got the mad riz. But with that being said, though, I do want to bring this up because I don't know if you've been following up with the whole Akash Singh thing, the comedian. I don't know if you know who he is. So he's this comedian who is married to he's Indian, right? And his wife is also Indian. So she's a stay-at-home wife, and she's made it clear, right? But she's this is where you draw the line of like, okay, you don't cross certain boundaries, right? So she went viral because she made a video regarding her past life in college and how she misses basically being in college and being wild, right? Now, she told him that she was a virgin when they got together. And now that's coming up. And essentially, like everyone's making fun of him. Everyone's calling him a cuck, whatever, all these terms that you would use for people who essentially have no boundaries, right? And like she's crossing really bad boundaries. She was even on a podcast with her friend, and her friend's husband was there, and then she told him that her husband was attractive in front of her, right? And that she wanted to essentially have an orgy with him, right? There's where you're like, okay, dude, like you're kind of crossing boundaries now, right? So there's a level of like respect, right? So like what you said, celebrities, I mean, they're pretty much unrealistic, but then there's people who do try to cross those lines and say things like that just because they get too comfortable. And then now you're like, well, you kind of crossed the line with that one. There's no going back with that. Once you put that out, then you can't get away from that. So want to make that clear. What do you think
Yo,
about that?
that is insane.
Look it up.
I didn't. All right, so now I know what you're talking about because I did see
Yep.
what's his name? Fragment, I think it's called, the one with
Yes,
Anthony
yes,
Schultz.
that's the guy. Yep.
So the
Hmm.
the the episode's popping off, I think tomorrow or
Yes.
Friday's gonna drop, and
Watch it.
he's like,
Watch it.
"Yo, we're gonna talk about all about this," and he had his boy in the background and stuff. I guess he's
Akash.
gonna come on the show and he's gonna talk about it.
He is getting fucking cooked, bro.
Yo,
Like
I didn't know. Like, I really
internet
don't.
is fucking cooking the shit out of this dude and his wife because of the shit she's saying.
But that is mad disrespectful, bro. Like,
Beyond, beyond.
that is, hey, yo, like, I don't even. Damn, he's probably getting it harder than Adam, whatever his name is, the dude.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because you saw his wife sent
Oh
the
yeah.
a contract to Blueface so they could make a video. You heard about it, right?
Really? Well, no, I did not
Yeah,
know that. But I mean, I know he's into that kind of shit. So
yeah, but still.
yeah,
But to be sidelined and you ain't even know this shit, and for her to go be going on social media and just
yeah.
making you look crazy,
No, no, no. Trip out on this. The husband was there too when she was saying that. They were
what?
all four of them were there together, right? She told her friend that her husband was attractive and that she's been thinking about having basically an orgy with him, right? And then
What?
the guy's like, he's like right there, like, dude, like, aren't you gonna say some shit, like,
He
you
just
know, at
stood
that
there?
point, even if you said something, like, you already got emasculated in front of everybody. There's
Well,
nothing you can say.
he should have just been like, yeah, we with it. Let's do it. You know what I mean? Like, you're a comedian, bro. You should have had that quick
That
and
too.
been like, yo, we with it. Let's do it.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, that's the only way. Yeah, you're gonna get roasted, but you won't get roasted that bad.
yeah. But he didn't say nothing. Even the husband of the friend was like, he put his hand on his face, like, really, like, you're embarrassing your husband in front of me. And then her friend started laughing too. It was weird. It was like this
What?
weird, like, look, if you're into that kind of stuff, all right, that's between you, all of you guys. But again, you're putting it on the internet, you're gonna make people look bad. And I think there is that boundary again where you should have some kind of privacy. This stuff should not be out in the internet, personally.
Yo, I'm just thinking about, remember Snow White when she was going weird, weird. Damn, bro, that shit. I didn't even know this
Yeah.
shit happened. Like, this is the first. Nah.
Yeah, you gotta look him up.
Well,
Akash, I
I'm
think
gonna
his
listen
name's Akash.
to the Schultz show and see what's up
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah, he's all over the internet, bro. On Twitter, on YouTube, you can find something on him for sure.
I'm sure the
Yeah.
algorithm's listening to us right now, and when
Oh
I
yeah,
go on YouTube later, I'll probably
he's
end up
gonna pick it
seeing it
up.
on my feed.
Hmm. Yep.
Damn, bro, that shit. I don't even know what to say right now. That shit some wild shit right there.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that goes back to, when we were having this conversation with my wife in a podcast about American culture being so permissive, right? And that's one thing I do like about our culture. And what I mean by our culture is Hispanic, Mexican culture, right? There's still some taboos, right? That you just do not cross, or at least like you don't try to cross them. So, like, when I heard, I mean, I'm not even this person's husband. Like, it irks me to hear that shit as a man, to hear that your wife saying this shit and publicly in front of everybody, right? It just disgusts me personally, right? Anybody really talking like that. Like, if you're publicly saying these things to people, I wouldn't talk like that publicly to anybody. I would not go out and say, oh yeah, when I was back in college, I was doing X, Y, and Z. Nah, man, that's between me and myself. I don't even tell my wife, because what's the point, right? What's the point of even that? I've never talked about that with her because it isn't going to serve anybody, right? And there's that taboo of like it's not okay to be doing that. At the end of the day, for me personally, like reflecting on it as an adult, almost 39 years old, like if I could go back and redo it, maybe like because I'm older, like I would have do half the shit I did because some of this shit is like, man, like what the hell was I doing? Like what was I thinking? Like a lot of that stuff has to do with trauma and just men we're taught that we got to conquer women and that the more we do it, the more manly we are. But at the end of the day, it's all bullshit, man. You don't need to do a lot of that stuff. And so I think
Well,
it's interconnected. I think this is why women are so hypersexual today because they believe that that's their value, that's their worth. And men are told, your conquest or will make you a man, you know?
but I think it's more of a of a generation thing. Because nowadays, there's a bunch of studies that dudes ain't really getting laid and not even looking to get laid no more and shit.
It's all happened now.
It's crazy. But then women, on the other hand, are more
Open.
open about just like smashing and shit, which is crazy. So like
Yeah.
the scripts are flipping.
Yep. Well, a lot of men are not doing it because it's become ultra competitive to do it. And like you said, women are more open to doing it now. So they're going to choose the top, the cream of the crop. They're not going to sleep with twos, like you said, right? So a lot of these dudes who are twos and threes or whatever you want to call them, they're just not even trying. I mean, you still can probably get laid, but they're not even trying anymore. And back when we were younger, I mean, I would say that there was still that element of trying.
You had
You
to
would
try.
fail, you would fail, sometimes, and that's fine. But a lot of dudes literally will just spend all day on the internet masturbating, playing video games. I'm just keeping it a stack, bro. Like there are young men out there who prefer to do that than to go out there
That's
and have a conversation with a woman.
yeah, just all right. So yeah, just going back on this whole like relationship shit, right?
Hmm.
I you know, I sometimes see it, like heading to work, coming from work, and you see the interaction between like couples and stuff, or like dudes trying to talk to girls and shit. It doesn't really happen. You see it more with the older crowd trying to talk to, people their own age and shit. Like you see
Yeah.
but you don't really see the youth like on some
Nope.
talky shit, bro. And like trying
No.
to, talk to a shorty, like try to nothing. But then you see the older crowd and you see them trying to talk to each other. But some of them are also going into the whole internet shit and like using apps and like I don't know. It's just one of those things. I think there's nothing like just walking up and, shooting your shot, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that was always kind of fun, to be honest. Like, because you never knew how it was gonna go, right? And it is a skill you have to develop. It's like a callus, you develop it before you know it. It's just like you have extra thick skin, and it's just like okay, either it works out or it doesn't. And it's funny that you mentioned that because I got a buddy. I'm not gonna mention him because I don't want to put his name out there, put him on blast. But he's always sending me memes on Instagram and like regarding like women and just just the interactions that we're talking about. And there was this one clip. I don't know if you've seen the show Pop the Balloon, right? So this man, I don't know what he said. They popped his balloon, right? The woman popped his balloon, and they asked her, "Why'd you pop it?" Like what's wrong with him? He's like, there isn't much anything wrong with him. I just don't know. I don't know. I just don't feel like it's a good match." And the guy he flips it on her, and he's like, it's okay. You're the indecisive type, right? And as soon as he said that, it's like he planted a seed of doubt into her, and she started to listen to him. And I know what he was doing, right? That was his style. That was the way he was, raising her up, as you say, the kids say. And before you knew it, she left with him out of the night. She popped her balloon, but she ended up leaving with him, right? And then my friend's like, dude, like you got to teach me how to do this shit, right? He was like, how do you do that? And what I told him is this essentially, I was like, when you're young and you don't have much to offer, right? What you do is you find a weakness and you exploit it. And that's what a lot of these men do, right? They will exploit that weakness. He knew what he was doing, and then from there, like if you're a terrible person, you're gonna lie your way through until you hit, essentially, right? Um, but a lot of men don't have personality today. So a lot of men don't know how to do that. Now, I'm not okay what he did, right? Because at the end of the day, he lied, right? But essentially, that's what a lot of men would do, and that's what we're taught to do. Do whatever it takes, to get in, right? So that's why relationships don't last with men and women today because these dudes only know how to attract women. They know how to get with them, but they don't know how to keep them.
Completely agree. And just to, go what you just said right now. Even growing up, remember how there was a bunch of TV shows growing up and a bunch
Oh
of
yeah.
books about how to hook up and how to, like talk to a girl, like how to break
Yep.
ice and shit. There was a whole show I remember with a guy with a funny hat and shit. Like he would like go up to girls and he'll have like a whole freaking package. People would spend a lot of money just so they could show them how to pick up chicks and shit, like magic tricks, like random little shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I ain't gonna front. I was guilty of that shit, bro. I was one of those
Hey,
kids and shit. I was guilty.
hey.
I used to read those books and shit, pick up shit, and see all this bullshit and stuff on TV and shit. And then not for nothing. Some of the shit worked, some of the shit didn't. There's only one way to find out. You have to try it on field and shit. And if it works, it works. If it don't, it don't. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Even if you got the number and then you got played and you got fucking blocked and shit afterwards, but it still count. You still got the number. And if your
Yep.
boys with you, you still got points because they don't know that, you ain't ever talked to the person never again, or you got a fake number. Because remember they have no fake numbers back in the day.
Oh yeah.
You get the fake number, you call it up, and it's like, oh, the rejection line.
Oh yeah. And again, going back to the conversation about beauty standards, that's the general like beauty that people think is attractive, right? And it's funny because a lot of these women are white, but they have features that you would see again in black women and Latina women, right? Because a lot of, I mean, unless like you're like maybe like in the South, right? A lot of white women are not as voluptuous, right? For whatever reason, they tend to be more on the thin side, like the Taylor Swifts, like these women. And nothing wrong with that. Again, I'm not hating on that, right? I mean, someone is gonna find that attractive, right? But it's these types of women who are trying to have these attributes that, again, predominantly black and Latino women have. So it's not even a real look; it's a modified look. And a lot of the times, you see athletes, black athletes who date white women who have these these attributes, right? And that's also another conversation because there is also like a big thing where like there's I don't know if there's like hate or like pushback against black men dating white women, in particular black famous men or athletes or artists, right? There's like a big pushback again. I don't know if you've seen that or like um heard people talk about that. What do you think about that?
Nah, I completely agree with that. But it's even on the brown side. Just think about the women that marry outside, and think about George. Isn't George Lopez married to some white chick? I think.
He got married again?
I don't know, but didn't he take the kidney from his wife and shit?
That dude's an asshole, bro. I know he's not married to that woman because I mean I know they got divorced.
So, but in general, I think
Yeah.
once you get to
Certain
wealth,
status. Yeah.
certain status is like it seems like you go blonde and white.
It's a status symbol, and and unfortunately, it's people have equated whiteness to a status symbol, in particular white women.
Just think about, all right, so when it comes down to like Mexican movies back in the day, like Spanish movies in general, right?
Yes.
The person they will always pursue, the men always pursue the light skin or the blonde hair colored because they would
Yep.
dye their hair blonde and stuff, and they found that the most attractive. Or they were trying to go for the American girl or the gringa or those features. They didn't have like a body. You get me? They didn't have like they just had a regular sized body, not oversized here, oversized there. It was just, a Taylor Swift body. That was portrayed as what you needed to aim for. And that's what we used to see in these Spanish movies. But then the more vulgar movies had the voluptuous chicks with the breasts and the butt and stuff. I forgot the chick's name who used to be like one of the top ones and shit back in the day. But jet black hair, long hair. I forgot her name, but she was hot. So I don't think it's not even that. I think it's everyone, every culture, anybody who goes, darker shade and stuff starts, once they get to a certain tier and stuff, they go outside. Even when it comes down to women, the same thing. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Just think about how many politicians, right?
They'll have white husbands.
See?
AOC. What is her other name?
Harris.
Imani or something like that? Yeah, yeah. Harris. Yep.
Harris.
Pretty much that whole group of like young women who are in politics, they all have white husbands or boyfriends, I
Yeah.
believe. Yep. Which again, I don't care, right? But it's also kind of ironic, in particular in that community, because there's women who are, I've made this joke, and if somebody gets offended, I'm sorry, right? But you know, uh, brown women who are speak about the white man this, the colonizer this, right? But then they go out and marry a white guy. It's just to me ironic because you talk about the white man being the oppressor and doing this, right? And then you go in bed with him. So I say, politicize in the streets, but colonize in the sheets.
Well, same thing goes with with white politicians. They go
Yep.
and cause the sheets too. Look at Vance. His
Yep.
wife is Indian.
Yep. Oh, but now the whole thing with him and Kirk's wife. Have you seen that?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think that's a stretch, bro. I don't even.
Nah.
I don't see that shit. I think it's a stretch. You know what I mean? It's like you can make a photo look wild.
True.
You know what I
True.
mean? You can
True.
make what photo. I'm not gonna talk about a certain photo, but I'm pretty sure you're reading my mind. What photo I'm
I've
talking
seen it.
about? You know what photo I'm talking about?
Yep.
I said I'm gonna leave that alone. But that photo they say is legit real.
That she's wild.
And if you guys know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. Yeah, I know what photo I'm talking about. All right.
Is that when he's hugging her by the waist?
No, we're not talking about that photo. We're talking about the other one.
Which one is it?
There's a guy's nickname who's damn, was it Bubba? Damn, bro. You know when you have a bag of oranges? All right.
Oh shit.
So,
Wow.
all right. So we're gonna go and something about the 90s and stuff. So along those
Mm,
lines.
I got you.
All right. So I said I was getting off of that, but damn, that would have been a good combo right there. But
Sheesh.
so leaving the bag of oranges behind, even though in the summer they hit, when you have the bag of oranges and they peel them and shit and they put them in the bucket,
Yep.
in the cooler, I mean, them shits be hitting, bro.
Oh, for sure.
Them oranges hit. But yeah. Kirk, we were talking about yeah, so I personally from what I observe, right? Just going back to the whole relationship and we talking about just like you said, like people who talk about, oh, this culture does this culture does that, right? This race does
Mhm.
this race.
Yeah, yeah.
But then you go hook up with the race, right?
Not just hook up with him, you marry him.
You marry them and have
You
kids.
procreate with them.
You have this whole thing. So
I
it's
don't care.
like, but then when you look at their raising, right? They grew up within the
White folks.
community.
Hmm.
They grew up in the community. So that's, little things like that, as you get older, you observe these things and you're like, can it be? You know what I mean? But then with athletes, I think is the
You don't.
opposite. I think
It's a
athlete
status symbol.
is a status symbol, right?
Mhm.
And, and this shit goes on for years, you know what I mean? We just talk about in general, like decades.
OJ is a prime example of that. First one, I
Exactly.
would say.
I think he was he was basically the poster boy, but then
Pretty much.
he went and messed it up and shit.
Fuck.
His jealousy got the best of him and shit, which is not good.
Nope.
Jealousy is not a good thing, guys. And if you feel like you're going down that toxic route,
Sickness.
I personally I think you should have a sit down with yourself and your significant other if you want to, and just have the talk and shit, and let them know how you feel. Because for you to feel like that, it has to be a trust issue. You know what I mean?
I personally think it's, you know, for me experiencing it, because I was there at one point. Like I said, I mean, we started this conversation with, you got to deal with all the things that come
Yeah.
with being a beautiful woman, right? For me, it was a lot of trauma. that I experienced as a kid, and I've never publicly said this, right? Because I mean, I didn't acknowledge it until just recently,
You don't
going through,
have to though, but
I'm not gonna go into the details, obviously, right? But essentially, like for me, like I spent years trying to, prove my manhood to people, right? And I did stupid things because of it, right? So anytime that I felt like my manhood was being tested or being disrespected, that that feeling of jealousy came up. So obviously, when you are with somebody that's beautiful, and sometimes you might think, well, fuck, am I even good enough for this person, right? It's really yourself you're battling with. You're not even battling with anybody else. She's not doing anything, right? She might not even be aware she's doing anything to you, right? Again, unless you're that woman that we talked about earlier, just putting it out there, that's different. But I think it's important to acknowledge that because once you do, then you realize that man, like it's a lot of my own internal issues that I have not necessarily dealt with. And once you start doing that, then you start to heal and really realize like, it's something that you couldn't control. And then once you realize what the root of the problem is, and you address it and you move on. So I have been a lot happier the last couple of years, you know, being able to accept that and just dealing with it and you know, like, hey, like, yeah, I didn't have to do all the shit that I did to prove, and I think a lot of men go through stuff like that and they just don't acknowledge it. They don't want to acknowledge it, or they don't even know. They just block it. And they spent their entire life trying to prove they're a man to other men, right?
it's
Most of the
weird.
time. It's not even it's not even to themselves, like, and that's the problem. You know?
And another thing you could do, guys, if you feel like this sometimes, pick up a book. Those self-improvement books and shit, yeah, there are a lot of wisdom in there. Not everything's gonna be 100% to you. You could take a little bit from here, a little bit from there. And personally, I find them pretty interesting, right? I
Yes.
find them shitload of
Wow.
entertainment as well. And I find so many key points that you could take a little, like I said, take a little bit from here, take a little bit from there. And then you can improve on yourself personally, which also is going to help you improve your relationship or the relationship you're going to have, right? And just to talk about relationships, right? I just want to let women know that, yo, ladies, it's not hard for you to find a partner. Believe it or not, it's way easier for you to find a partner than it is for a man to find a partner.
Interesting. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, so I know I sidelined completely on this, but it just came to me, and we always, go off the dome and shit.
It's
Nothing's
all right.
ever written down. So just continue from there. Yeah, it's easier for women to find a spouse or start a relationship with someone than it is for a man, believe it or not. A woman could be a one, and have a full blown, crazy, amazing relationship with a guy who's like a fucking 10. And then we all know people like this. Like, how did Shorty get the dude? Like, that dude is fucking hot. Like, you walking around with Mario Lopez and shit, and you
She's
over
a one, bro. Goddamn.
and you looking
Big
over here
stretch.
like that Chewbacca, like that thing, that big that big shorty who's like
I know what you're talking about.
like they had the whole Star Wars shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Then the other one too, the other one who's a chick who has no chin and shit. She had a whole dude too. So that's what I mean. Yeah, she got money, and I'm sure that helped her a whole lot. But still, the dude linked up with that and have a whole relationship. I think to this day they still hooked up or whatever the factor is, right? But
Do you
now,
think it's because men have like weird fetishes?
yeah, I didn't think about that shit right there. I think so. It has to be.
I think it is,
I
bro,
think it
because
is.
I think men are just, I don't know. I mean, like, I think about, let's use Diddy as an example. Maybe not the best one, right? Like, I'm sure
Yo,
that dude got mad, like mad women, like when
but
he
make
was young.
sure, sorry to cut you off. Make sure y'all check out that 4 episode documentary. Yo,
Uh,
before
wow.
because remember Netflix got a season desist for that documentary. So make sure you check it out. Shout out to 50. You already know you're doing crazy work.
I
But
gotta see it
yo, make sure you see it before they take it down. It was good.
for sure. All right. Like him, like, all the weird shit that he was into, right? Because of all the stuff that he was dealing with, right? And I think, I mean, well, now it's changing a little bit. We talked about this earlier, how women are more open about their sexuality and their experiences, right? But I think men, I think they're more willing to cross these taboos, right? Because they have all these urges or these fetishes that they don't necessarily meet. So you'll have your these girls that you're like, well, why is she with that guy, right? I mean, maybe he just got tired of dealing with like nothing but tens and they have no personality. He wants to be with somebody who, I don't know, like actually cares about him, right? But I also wanted to do also to point out something you mentioned earlier about body types, and I think there's a distinction, and I think not many women know this, right? And they lead with this, and I think this is why a lot of women today are single moms or just don't have a partner, even though they can, like you said, right? They lead with their sexuality because again, that's what is being told to them that is what we want. Now, of course, we are more sexual than women. I would say at least like more expressive, but going back to that prime example, right? Of like, oh, this is a woman who's very voluptuous, right? Versus a woman who like a Taylor Swift who is not as voluptuous, but she's still being pursued. From my experience, right? Somebody who's very voluptuous and has all these features is going to be sexualized a lot more. Even if they're not that type of woman. Even if they're very conservative, just the fact that they have these features, the men who approach them, that's going to be their initial thought. I got to hit this because damn, look at this. Now you're Taylor Swift's, right? Still attractive, but are not as sexualized. So you kind of see them in a different light. So, okay, this is more long term. You still have to be obviously attracted to them physically, but I don't know if you agree with this. There's a difference, right? When I was younger, I always put women in three categories. You know, is this somebody that I could be friends with, somebody that I could just, hook up with, or long term? Off the bat, I knew it. At least my intentions, right? What I wanted to do. And I think it was usually based off some of these things that I just talked about.
Nah, that is completely true and shit. The whole category and shit that you go through as a dude and shit, you do categorize chicks. There's chicks that that are hot, and believe it or not, they could end up in the friend zone because you're like,
Yep.
I can't see myself. I think you a cool person. You so cool that there's no way I'll have a relationship with you because you that cool. I don't want to mess up the friendship. And people don't get it. It's like what?
Yeah.
Shit like that does happen. Like you got mad respect and like, nah, you just a friend. Like what? But they don't see you like
You're
that.
like, what?
They don't see you like that. They see you more than a friend. You're like, nah, you
Uh,
cool and shit. But you don't say it like that. You just, just don't cross that line and shit. They'll try to cross and be like, yo, back up, back up, back up. And then they look at you mad, weird, like you weird and shit.
yeah, yeah.
But they don't get it. But women, on the other hand, will let you know you friend zoned and shit.
On the spot.
And then they'll tell the whole world you're friend zone and shit. And then that's sad because then the guy's out there going to comedy shows and then the comedian points them out. And then the guy is like, yo,
Oh,
we just
I've seen
friends.
some of that shit.
You seen that
Oh
shit, right?
man, I've seen it.
You seen it, right?
I've even seen some where the comedian takes the girl and it's like, hey, like let's go. Or the girl's like into the guy, like whatever. She'll like give him like a kiss, on the cheek. Even then, like
Mm-hmm.
dude's completely emasculated. Completely emasculated.
So then the
That's
comedian tries to save him, be like, "Yo, who wants to date this homie right here?" and shit. Brings him on stage and shit.
yeah, yeah.
Sometimes the homie goes with it, and then he ends up hooking up with somebody in the audience and shit. But
Yep.
like I said, it's easier for women to always find someone. I think
Because
it's
they're gonna
harder.
have more suitors.
Yeah, it's and then again, there is more women in the world than men, so it's just one of those things. Believe it or not, men have a harder time walking up to someone and having that conversation and shit, and just going along trying to see if they could, they could get the match and shit. Even online, I'm sure online dating probably they have the same situation. You got me because now you got to meet face to face and shit. Like you can have a good match, but now you don't know when you meet face to face, you might just be like, but you're not you just get nervous because you can't.
Yeah.
It's true, you know what I mean? And then I think females should give some guys a chance, you know what I mean? But then again, you've seen it. You've seen hot chicks with the ugly dude, but the ugly dude be having money though.
He's got to have something at the end of the
The
day, you
ugly
know.
dude be having a stack. Look at all these billionaires and shit and their hot wives and shit, bro. So
But then again, I would say that I think most men want to have somebody who is, if not as equally as good looking as them, if not hotter than them, right? Because again, that's also a status symbol, right? Like I said earlier, having a beautiful woman is even if you don't have anything else as a man, right? You don't have a car, you don't have a house, you don't have shit, but you got a hot girl, you got some kind of status as a man. Would you agree?
completely agree with you on that.
Yeah, right.
You got a dime piece and shit. Ain't nobody could take that shit. You know what I
Exactly,
mean?
right.
That's what
So
you holding.
yeah, so I mean, this is why people shoot up, shoot your shot. And when I was younger, I didn't care. I never, I knew some girls were above my league and I just didn't care. I was like, you know what? Even if she is, the worst you can say is no, but I got a lot of dubs because of I was shooting up. I'm like, why am I going to shoot down? Like, what's the point? Like, you know?
Well, you got to shoot your shot. And the whole thing is, right, is about practice, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like playing basketball. You got to practice because eventually you're going to find somebody. And if you never shot your shot, you're never going to know if it works.
Yep.
And then it's all about finding somebody, right? That's the whole game about life. Is just finding a partner. It's finding a significant other, even if it's not sexually, because eventually it ends up there. I would think so. You know what I mean?
Yes.
As
Yep.
you age, shit ain't the same no more and shit.
No. Nope.
It's just about having companionship. You know what I mean? You got to find that right person you want to have companionship with. Because believe it or not, you see people who tend to grow old and shit and alone and shit. Sometimes they have a healthy lifestyle, right? But they have, I would say, a great support system. Like they have like family, they have friends they're close with and shit. But if you don't have that, it kind of sucks being lonely, bro.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It sucks kind of being lonely. You know what I mean? Like you don't got nobody. I'm sure we all know somebody like that.
Yep.
We all know somebody like that, you know? But then, also the people who have like a long, long relationship, right? And sometimes they're dysfunctional, right? And Spanish people, we know these people. They
All the
curse
time.
at each other, they hate each other. But the minute that person goes to the next world, you
They
see
don't.
how much they miss them. But that's just the way they work. Like they really did love each other. Yeah, they argue a shitload, right? They always on each other's throat. But deep inside, they still go to bed together, wake up and shit and everything. And then you really do see the truth of the relationship is when one of them, dies of age or natural causes. Then you see it as like, oh shit, like that was really theirs and shit. Like we always saw it as man, yeah, ain't you happy? And you're like, oh shit, like that was really the way they worked together. And some people see it and you know what I mean? It just don't look right. But for them, it worked. Not every relationship is gonna be willy and nilly, happy and shit, walking down, skipping down the road and shit. Some people don't like that. Some people like
Yeah.
having an argument here and there all the time and shit.
They like the toxicity.
Yeah, they do. Doesn't mean they don't love each other and shit. Doesn't mean they don't care about each other, they do. That's just the way they know how to show emotion to each other, which also comes probably from
Their
the way
traumas.
they were, yeah, their traumas, the way they grew up and shit, and so on and so forth. So is a huge, it's a huge thing in the back and stuff, how everything works together and stuff. So you can never judge a book from its cover and shit. The only thing I would say is bad is when, people start putting hands on each other and shit.
Oh yeah, that's
That-
unacceptable.
That's not nothing. That's just like nah, nah, nah. That's a no no right there. Because
Yep.
there's no excuse and shit. No fucking
Nope.
excuse.
Nope. I would say that going back to your examples of like you have couples that as you get older, obviously, that what's gonna matter is the companionship, right? And then you have couples that married based off of feeling and looks. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make if you're gonna be with somebody long term. You might think to yourself, well, what do you mean? Like, of course you want to love your significant other. Yes, you do want to love them, right? But long term, you need that companionship, that person that you know is going to be with you. You trust them fully that they're going to be with you, regardless of what happens to you, right? So I think these couples that do that when they get to a certain age where the looks are no longer as appealing as they were when they first got married, the sex is no longer good, or just they don't even feel any kind of connection anymore. Especially the women, because I mean the women will become emotionally detached. Because men can continue to have it without the emotion. Women need to be emotionally attached to you to feel that connection, to want to do it with you. And that's why a lot of men, who end up in sexless marriages is because of that. It's like, well, you stop trying, you stop caring. And then now it's like, why would I want to do it with you if I don't even feel anything towards you, right? So you have that example. So if your entire relationship is based on sex and like looks and just feelings, that shit's gonna die, bro. Like it's not it might have a nice run and a nice flare up and you might enjoy the moment, but you got to think long term. When I'm 70 years old, 80 years old, and my shit can't get up no more, right? Like, like, do I want to be with this person next to me? Do I want to sleep with this person next to me? Do I want to be, spending the rest of my time with this person? That's what I'm thinking, right? Everything else is extra to me. If she has all the other qualities, great, right? Um, so I'm very fortunate. I feel like I'm able to have both of those in my wife. Obviously, I wouldn't be with her if I didn't think that. But being in past relationships where that wasn't the case, where long term it was like, nah, I saw the future. Like shit ain't gonna work. I know that down the line when I don't have shit, they ain't gonna be there, right? So I've been fortunate. Been together for 11 years, so we must be doing something right.
I agree. And just to add something else, right? When it comes down to that, guys. So, like I said, listening to books and shit, and just happened to be that I just finished listening to a book about it's called The Vagina Bible. If I'm not mistaken, I think I shared like a minute and 30-second clip from the books. So if you follow my page, I always have these books that I listen to, and then I take a minute and a half, which a reel is made, and it's something that caught me, right? And like catches something in there, and I'm like, yo, it stays in my head and shit, right? So in that book, and then this podcast that we're talking about women's bio and shit as they get older and shit, right? Is not that they lose the want for sex, right? Is that they go through menopause, right? So due to the fact that the body doesn't create eggs anymore, they go through this whole menopause stage. So as men, we have to be a little bit more understanding of what our wives are going through or our partners going through. You know what I mean? Is not that they don't want to, is that biology, I mean the whatever. You get what I'm saying right now. So is just menopause kicks in, right? So it fucks up the whole biology in a woman, right? So the estrogen is not there no more. Believe it or not, they do build testosterone as well. So it's all these little things that add up, right? But they do have treatment for this, believe it or not. So if you want, make sure, have the conversation. There's have the conversation with your wife and be like, yo, if you know they're gonna go through that time and stuff and they start feeling menopause coming in through, let them know that there's things that steps they could take shots and stuff that would still make their body create the chemicals that they're not producing no more. But with the shots and with the pills and stuff, the body would, start creating it like, oh, we need to create it and shit. Like it'll still function better. And we also have to understand that when they go through menopause, they could get depressed. Depression, they could get stressed out. So it's all these little things that as men we need to understand in the woman's bio. That it they can't really help it. You get what I mean? Like it's just the way the body works. Just like us, right? As we get older, right? Some of us, our testosterone levels go down. So as our testosterone levels go down, we're losing muscle, our HGH, which is human growth. Our muscles, then you start having saggy skin, and then your balls ain't working like they were. Your joint ain't fucking standing up right no more. So you have to either take shots or take vitamin stuff to continue producing testosterone in your body so you don't lose these things. And there's other shit too. There's so much stuff that I can't like break it down to you right now because I'm not gonna remember every single thing, but I'm just giving you like brief cliff notes and stuff of what to do and shit. But just go out there, you know what I mean? Just go out there and look these things up. And I'm sure that if you have these conversations with your partner and shit, they'll be like, oh shit, like you really are, looking this stuff up. You are listening to these things and shit. And it's cool, you know what I mean? Just having that conversation. Because sometimes they do want you to, to have the conversation and be knowledgeable of what's happening. It's
Absolutely. And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, it's just one of those things. I think as we get older, we don't realize these shits because when we're young, it's like, oh, whatever, whatever, and shit. And as men, our moms talk about it, our aunts talk about it. The females in general in our life speak of
Yes.
menopause, right? And some men be like, "Oh, here we go with that bullshit." You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's good to educate yourself. If you take something from this episode, I would love for you to take that and look it up, and then you pop that shit around and tell your wifey and shit. Wifey could be either one. Nowadays, wifey, you could just be in a relationship or it could be legit your wife.
Yeah.
So I just want you to take that with you and shit and look it up. I forgot what's the episode I was listening to and shit, but if I do, I'll put it on my storyline so you guys could listen to it and it's cool. Like legit is a well informative episode and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one thing that I heard on this podcast regarding men and their interactions with women. In particular, they're women, that they've been with or whatever. And your example of women going through menopause, right? They change. Obviously, their drive is going to drop. I mean, I just with my relationship, when my wife got postpartum depression, that was a huge shift in her hormones and her mental state, right? I was like, what's going on? Like, who is this person? Like, I didn't even know. I couldn't recognize that. And I know I could have done better at being more compassionate, but I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the capacity at the time, the understanding to be able to provide that emotional support. But luckily, she had compassion for me, not having compassion for her, if that makes any sense, right? Um, but one of the things that men are not taught is to be kind. We're taught to be nice, right? Which is, a cousin of kindness, but it's not the same. Kindness is genuine. Nice is with incentive. We're nice to women because they can give us something in return. But being kind to a woman because they deserve it or because you just want to, that is it's a rarity. And I think that's the quality that today's women want in men because they don't need us financially anymore. They don't need us, to provide in other ways. They got their the therapy, they have their emotional support, right? In other groups. But if they're gonna be in a relationship with men, we have to be able to provide that. And a lot of us are not taught to do that. We have not been taught to do that. We're learning it as the world is changing with us. So this is where a lot of relationships fail because you're like, well, I bring in the money, I work 14 hours a day. Yet I worked in 1950, right, with our parents and grandparents who they had very strict, rigid roles. That doesn't work anymore. We have to adjust. Doesn't mean you have to be somebody you're not. You still have your personality, you still have your traits. But if you want to be in a successful relationship with your wife, with your partner, you got to be able to provide that kindness to your woman because it's going to fail. And I've seen that in people. I'm just like, man, like, I don't get it. This guy was bringing in all the money, right? But he just was not providing that part of it. And they're starting to realize this, right? And I think a trend, we mentioned it earlier with women of color dating white men and marrying white men because white men, in particular, liberal white men, they have that quality that brown and black men don't have. And I'm going to keep it a stack, right? They know how to be more compassionate. They know how to be more understanding. And that's why they're choosing them over brown men. I've seen that, right? And I'm not going to hate on that. I'm not going to hate on them, because they have it, whatever, they are more prepared for that because they've had less traumas, right? Our traumas, we use coping mechanisms to survive. They don't have that. So they're able to provide these things that women are asking for today. And that's why a lot of young men today don't know how to adjust. And I think that if this continues, then what's going to happen is either we're going to have depopulation at a massive level, or women are just going to start having, kids, you know, uh, with sperm donors, or the entire society is going to change to a, uh, you know, um, women-led or matriarchal society where women are becoming leaders, and it's just going to flip. I see a lot of men who just can't lead because they don't know how to, right? They're in this system where it's changing and they don't know how to do it. The ways of their parents doesn't work. They don't have an identity. And women are like, you know what? They're not going to wait. They're going to go for the best suitor. They don't have time for you to grow up. They don't care, so I get it. I'm fortunate that I'm not grown up in this time because I don't know how I would have been able to adjust to a lot of these changes.
No, that's completely true. I don't even think me at this age, I'm not able to adjust with certain things that's going on in the world. Like just in general, like the way I was brought up and shit. Like there's certain things that I understand. I could see where you're coming from. But mentally, I'm like, huh? But I get you. I get you 100%. But deep inside, I'm like, nah, get the fuck out of here. But you know, I had this conversation way, way back about generation and trauma and shit, how it goes generation to generation and how it changes. You know what I mean? Sometimes generations stick with certain trauma. Each generation has their own trauma and shit, but that's for another episode. One thing I would like to leave off, right, before we end this right here is I want you to think about one thing, right? And this right here, when I heard it, I was like, yo, this shit hit me hard. But it's true. Currently in your relationship, think about this. The person you with, do you love them or do you like them? It's two different things, but believe it or not, Ask yourself that. Ask yourself, do you love them or do you like them? What you think about that, bro?
Oh, absolutely. I think about that all the time. You have to be able to like the person you're with. Again, going back to feelings and attraction, right? Liking is not a feeling, liking is an action, I would say. Uh, love can be an action too, right? It can also be a feeling, but a lot of these people who enter relationships just off these things and then realize I don't like this person. They're a piece of shit. They're not good for me, but the sex is good. They bring in the money, right? They tolerate not liking them because of these things that they think they're supposed to have. But yeah, if you don't like your person, man, like you got to be miserable. You sleep next to them every day. You eat next to them. You go out with them. I mean, you have to tolerate them at least, you know. So that is an important thing to think about. And there's a lot of people out there who definitely do not like their their person. I wouldn't even say significant other because they're not significant to them if they don't like them.
Very true. Very true. So just think about that, guys. And that saves you a whole lot of time. That saves you a whole lot of time because think about it. Some people with somebody for 10, 20 years and shit, and one day wake up, it's like, yo, I don't like you. Like, I can't stand you. I love you. I fucking love you. Hardcore. I'll do anything, but I fucking don't like you. I can't stand your ass. You know what I mean? Like, it's two different things. And it's in this honesty, some people don't understand that shit. People with you ask them like, oh no, I love them. So they think love is much greater than like. I'm like, nah, like, do you like what they do? And then, they realize like, not really. I don't like, they don't do this, they don't do that. So I don't like that. But I tolerate it because I love them. But I'm like, then you're wasting time when you could go and look for somebody you like. But
That's
just saying, is
that's a
a
good
quote
way
that
to
I heard, is a quote that I heard and shit. And it works. I never thought about it until that day when I heard that shit.
absolutely. That's a good way to wrap up the beauty standard, you know, conversation. Do you like the person that you find attractive?
Or what I would say, do you love them or you like them?
There you go.
All right. And with that said, y'all take it easy, man.
All right, peace out, y'all. Thank you for having us.